Okay, it's time for quiz number 3, review in MIDI 1. The control change messages plus our note on and note off messages, those combine to be the complete MIDI performance information, right? We have a bunch of other system level MIDI information, but for what I care about as a musician, yeah, it's pretty much just those control changes and then the note on and note off. In the control change messages, we're going to have 3 different bytes, 1 status byte and 2 data bytes. And the continuous controller information, that's going to be things like positions of knobs or sliders, is how I generally think of continuous controller information. Now, you can have a foot controller, and you can use that as compared to a knob or a slider. And I've encountered a couple that do some very interesting things with that, right? With just the sustain pedal that I have for my MIDI controller. Sometimes it's the vibrato or the modulation instead of the wheel that's on the keyboard, and I kind of like that because then I could still be doing 2 hands on the keyboard and controlling something else with my foot. Controller 7 is most commonly used for the volume inside of MIDI. So MIDI volume, which can be different than the audio volume. Select bank. So if you've got 4 or 8 banks of different sounds, selecting those banks is not one of the registered parameter numbers. Okay, and the MIDI spec has a bunch of different controls and different numbers that they use for those. Select bank is not one of those. The channel mode controllers, okay, so along a sort of subset of those is that we have all the sounds off, all controllers off, and then the local control on and off. And local control can be very important if you've got a setup like we do at the school where you have a keyboard with an internal synthesizer, but it's also controlling something else. If we don't want to hear that piano coming from the controller while we're playing something else, we have to have local control off. All right, the coarse control, so coarse as opposed to fine, right? So coarse and fine is the coarse is the most significant bit. MSB stands for most significant bit, the biggest number. Fine is going to be the least significant bit, the smaller number. Okay. Non-registered parameter numbers. We touched a little bit on this earlier. And these are, it's sort of a general classification of things that are not spelled out in the spec. And in this situation, that it is the non-registered parameter numbers that are used for determining which parameters set the data increments, how big a step is. Okay. And lastly, there's a true-false question. It is false that the local keyboard off will prevent a doubling of a note. It won't help you keep that double from happening in exactly that way. Okay, so I hope that was useful to you. If you got any other questions, reach out to me, email me, or message me on Blackboard. And remember, like the kangaroo said, at these prices, I am not surprised.